Heated Sky aims to correct the narrative that Betty Parsons was merely an art dealer who painted on the side. In fact, she was a trained artist whose diverse approach to abstraction offers a variety of aesthetics that resist categorization. Because the gallery is closed in order to help reduce the spread of COVID-19, Alexander Gray Associates and the Betty Parsons Foundation have jointly created this video in which I will bring you highlights of the show and discuss seminal works that complement its thesis. Betty Parsons opened her eponymous gallery in New York in 1946. And after the closure of Peggy Guggenheim's Art of This Century gallery in 1947, Parsons inherited Guggenheim's roster of artists, including Barnett Newman, Mark Rothko, Jackson Pollock, and Clifford Still. While her gallery's legacy is indeed closely tied to these leading figures, Parsons also showcased work by women, queer artists, and artists of color. Her diverse program reflected her liberal, inclusive values and her profound sense of community. Always present throughout her gallery career was Parsons' artistic practice. The objects in Heated Sky are from a body of work that Parsons created throughout the 1960s and 1970s. They include gouache on paper, oil on canvas, and acrylic on canvas. In these installation images is this exhibition's namesake, which is to the left of another signed work on paper. Both were made in 1976, and both play with the orientation of the sketchbook from which they came. Among the paintings on the second floor of the gallery is June 1971, a bright and joyous work that is one of several focal points for this show. There are a few works, however, that I would like to delve into in greater detail. Pasture from 1963 and Night Forms from 1960 are among the earliest works in this presentation. They feature biomorphic forms floating against a monochromatic background. Parsons' choice for each canvas's color stays true to their respective titles. In Pasture, Parsons thickly layers a rich green background that has both rhythm and dimension. Her blue forms, streaked with white, are refreshing notes that culminate in a solitary yet anchoring red presence. Parsons has played with the treatment and application of oil paint in the deep blue of Night Forms. By building thicker layers in some areas while keeping the medium thin in others, she creates both inky depth and translucent sheen. This varying viscosity touches the edges of the shapes that are at once earthly and celestial, and gives this painting a luminous quality. In Early Light, Parsons employs a similar mode of abstraction found in Pasture and Night Forms. But here, her unique burnt orange shapes are anchored onto a static plane. This flattening of space can be attributed to Parsons' further experimentation with medium. She created this work in 1965, 1 year after, according to art critic and curator Lawrence Alloway, she switched from painting with oil to using acrylic. Parsons' use of flattened planes continues in Winter Southold. Here, horizontal registers of varying earth tones are reminiscent of a landscape, one specifically from the area of Long Island in which Parsons decided to locate her studio. Architect Tony Smith completed its design and construction in 1960, giving Parsons a peaceful haven in nature that creatively informed her work. In addition to her studio, Parsons' cottage in Sheepscot, Maine provided her with another outlet to the natural world. In this canvas, entitled Maine, she mutes a vibrant red background with a deep burgundy and softly renders geometric forms that seem to have floated beyond the bounds of the picture frame itself. Rather than translating a topographical landscape, Parsons' abstraction plays with the effect of light and shadow in nature. When Parsons assigns time rather than place in her titles, her works transcend location. In Summer Fire and Early Morning, Parsons uses color and composition to tell their respective stories. In Summer Fire, flame-like forms emanate from a central focal point and swirl outwards. They almost seem to emit heat, as if standing in for the fire itself. The outlying green and blue seem to place this work in nature, while the geometric composition of Early Morning is more reminiscent of New York, the city in which Parsons was born and established her professional career. The contrasting and vibrant colors of this canvas also emit heat, but this time their source is the sun. While these works are not anchored to a specific place, they do capture the invisible presence, a phrase Parsons coined in 1977 to describe how she translated into art the essence of what she observed. While capturing the invisible presence was indeed a motivation for Parsons, so was developing her aesthetic choices. Two untitled works, made more than a decade apart, demonstrate her artistic progression. One from 1956 shows a less restrained, more experimental Parsons. In this highly abstract work, she includes numerous contrasting and accented colors, various geometric forms, and an element that one could interpret as figurative. Still present in the work circa dated to 1967 are the complementary accented colors and geometric elements, but now honed to fewer, bolder statements. A sketch of this work that I discovered in one of her numerous sketchbooks further elucidates the development of her artistic process. My final pairing in this presentation serves to demonstrate that Parsons' stylistic shifts were not linear and chronological, but were rather inherent to her unique nature. In Brick in the Sky and Fog, she employs her instinctual use of color to convey her interpretation of both place and time. Grounding the presentation is Parsons' version of biomorphic abstraction that, in these canvases, also lends a sense of atmosphere. In 1976, Betty Parsons told a reporter that the secret of life is to become more conscious, everyone finding her or his own truth. Parsons asserts her own truth not only by capturing the invisible presence, but by employing various modes of abstraction to do so. This refusal to privilege one style over another should not come as a surprise from a woman who opened a Midtown gallery in 1946 and ran it with a legendary spirit for almost 4 decades. Just as Parsons forged her own professional path, so too did she create canvases that hold a unique position within the canon of mid-century American art.